The other important story now is about Alban Bagbin, isn't it? Now, the Alban Bagbin conversation is about the role of the speaker, what the speaker can do, what the speaker cannot do. Now, we know that the speaker is the third most important person in the constitutional arrangement of Ghana. There's vice president, and speaker. So when the new speaker mounted the chair as a speaker from the opposition or as a speaker nominated by the opposition, it was seen as an awkward situation. In his inaugural address, President Akufo-Addo talked about the situation that is novel, and then they have to learn to live with it. Okay, so Speaker Bagbin started nicely, but in recent times, some decisions that he has made, including his relationship with the police over Havieso, so including telling the budget presentation, it is said that when the budget presentation was ready, Speaker thought that the parliamentary allocation to Parliament in the budget was too small, and so he was not going to sort of facilitate the presentation, etc., etc. So a lot of conversations being had about what is the role of the Speaker. What can the speaker do and what can the speaker not do? What I want to do tonight from now in the next 5 minutes or so is to enrich this debate so that you can make your own decisions as we look at it. So let's get back onto the touch screen now and let's go all the way to 1215, 13th century and look at the speaker. So this is the history of the speakership. Okay, so we start. Read with me. The birth of the English Parliament. The term Parliament, it says, developed naturally out of daily political needs of the English king and his government, and continued over time through short periods of rapid growth. In 1215, King John agreed to Magna Carta, which stated the rights of the barons to consult with and advise the king in his great council. Now, Magna Carta is the Bill of Rights. It originated in England, what we call human rights today. It was a Bill of Rights that was set out and given to the king. And the king was told that the people demand these rights of you, the ruler. And there was a big debate about Magna Carta. Eventually, the king agreed, and the new Bill of Rights was put down that citizens of England at the time, they call it, it was not United Kingdom, there was just England. Citizens of England will have this right, that right, X, Y, Z right. So that's the Bill of Rights. It originated from Magna Carta in 1215 under King John. We're going to the history of Parliament, and then we'll drive down straight to the role of the Speaker. The earliest use of the term Parliament was in 1236, and it was in reference to the Great Council. The modern British Parliament is one of the oldest representative assemblies in the world, after years of revolt, war, invasion, and several dethroning. The term Parliament became notorious in the 1250s when sheriffs were instructed to send elected representatives to counties, knights of the shire, to consult with the king on taxation. Taxation brings me back to the conversation of recent Ghana. So all of these rights, role of Parliament, the nexus of Parliament and the executive, which is the king, and the priesthood, the judiciary, and all of that, the whole concern was about taxation. And so the whole representation of Parliament is about taxation. But if the king or the monarch, the royalty or the executive is taking money from the people, then the people's representatives must have a role in how the money is applied. You remember J.B. Dankwa in Ghana, in opposing the 1946 Allan Bagbin's constitution, said that there should be no taxation without representation. At that time, they were calling on the colonial authority that they should allow the Africans representation in the legislative assembly. The colonial authority was resisting that, but the poll tax had already been introduced in the Gold Coast, and in Osu and other places in Accra, they were collecting the poll tax. Dankwa then coined the term no taxation without representation. So taxation and Parliament are bedfellows. The principle of taxation, the ability of a government to tax the people, how to do that, the model to do that, the mechanism to do that, that process and Parliament are very, very close. They are bedfellows, because really that is why Parliament exists. Parliament exists because the people are being taxed. And if the people are being taxed, then they need a representation with the executive or the king in the monarchy to try and deal with the taxation, to try and understand what the money is being used for, and also try and agree on how much money can be taken as taxes. So taxation and Parliament are really bedfellows. Okay, so let's move on with the history. In 1295, a Parliament made up of nobles and bishops, 2 representatives for each county and for each town, became model for the future parliaments. Okay, now this is my point here, emergence of a speaker. So let's read. The speakership under its present title dates back to 1377, when Sir Thomas Hungerford was appointed by 1376. People were getting tired of the elderly Edward III's rule and the influence of his favorites. In the Parliament of that year, the Commons chose Sir Peter de la Mare to act as a spokesman before the king in joining the complaints with that of the Lords. De la Mare was thus the first Speaker of the House of Commons. Okay, I'll give you the history again. Let's go on. During the Civil War in the 1640s, however, the struggle between Crown, that's the executive, the monarchy, and Parliament was reflected in the attitude of the Speaker of the House to the King. Hence, when King Charles I came to Parliament in 1642 to arrest 5 members of the Commons for treason, Speaker Linthal gave the following reply. Now, this is the crux of the matter. This is where the conversation begins. So this is the story. Civil War in England. King Charles understands that 5 of the people who are causing the mutiny are in Parliament. He wants to arrest them for prosecution. So he sends emissaries that go to the Speaker and tell the Speaker that he should release them unto me, that I may punish them for treason. Speaker Linthal replied in words that have proven to be timeless and eternal, even though he spoke this language in the 1640s or the 17th century. Let's have a look. He said, I quote, "May it please your majesty, I have neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak in this place," referring to the Chamber of Parliament. The Speaker says he has neither eyes to see nor a tongue to speak in this place. "But as the House is pleased to direct me, whose servant I am here, and I humbly beg your majesty's pardon that I cannot give any other answer than this to what your majesty is pleased to demand of me." Fantastic. Timeless words by Speaker Linthal. Speaker Linthal says that, well, your majesty, you want me to bring people to you, but here in this Parliament, I have neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak, except what the Parliament directs me. So this was the first expression of the role of the Speaker in the 17th century. This is the Speaker of Speaker Linthal. When the king had commanded that he should release the people, he says, no, I have to go to the Parliament and let the parliamentarians make that decision. Guess what? The decision was made against the king. The members of the House of Commons decided that they will not, by a majority vote, decided they will not release the people. Then the revolution got to an apogee and the king was beheaded. That's how this story ended. The king was beheaded. The king who went to the Speaker to demand the presence of some of the members of Parliament and Oliver Cromwell, who were causing the mutiny, he didn't get them. They got to know that he wanted to prosecute and kill them, and then they revolted. They went over to his palace and they beheaded him because Speaker Linthal stood his ground, and Speaker Linthal was a servant of the crown. But this is what he said: "May it please your majesty, I have neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak in this place, but as the House is pleased to direct me, whose servant I am here." The Speaker says he's a servant of the House. "And I humbly beg your majesty's pardon that I cannot give any other answer than this to what your majesty is pleased to demand of me," unquote. Okay, let's move on. By the mid-19th century, it was a norm that the Speaker should be above party. The Speaker is seen as a servant of the House and thus does not take decisions without the consent of the House. Paragraph 1.55 of the Companion of the Standing Orders and Guide of the Proceedings of the House of Lords are as follows: "The Lord Speaker has no power to act in the House without the consent of the House. He observes the same formalities as any other member of the House, addressing the House as a whole and not an individual member, and not intervening when a member is on their feet. The Speaker's function is to assist and not to rule. The House does not recognize points of order." But this is the House of Lords. But there are some interesting lines there that we can pick. The Speaker's responsibility, the document says, is to assist and is not to rule. Let me wrap it up very quickly. Paragraph 154 of the same Companion describes the Speaker's role in another sentence. Here is it: "The primary role of the Lord Speaker is to preside over proceedings in the chamber, including committees of the whole House. He takes the oath first at the opening of a new Parliament. His role in the ceremonies accompanying oath-taking, the state opening of Parliament, and the royal commissions are described in the appendices. The Lord Speaker seeks the leave of the House for any necessary absence of a full sitting day or more. Okay, that's more on the Speaker. The House of Commons Members Series fact sheet also describes the role of the Speaker of the House of Commons in the following terms. The Speaker must be above party political controversy and must be seen to be completely impartial in all public matters. All sides in the House rely on the Speaker's disinterest. This is very interesting. All sides, NDC, MPP, the majority and the minority, all sides in the House rely on the Speaker's disinterest. Very interesting, you saw that. All sides of the House rely on the Speaker's disinterest. The Speaker is disinterested in a partisan way. He's not party political. Whoever you are, whether you are former chairman of the MPP like Ajete was, whether you are former member of parliament for the NDC, MPP like Mike Okwe was, whether you are former member of parliament for the NDC like Alban Bagbin is, whether you are former member of parliament for the NDC like Adom-Otchere was, whatever it is, as soon as you become speaker, you are above party political controversy. And, most importantly, both sides rely on your disinterest. This is coming straight from England, long time ago. During a general election, the speaker will still need to be re-elected, but is unlikely to be opposed by any of the major political parties. Speakers do not stand on political issues, but are speakers seeking re-election, and they do not campaign. He's saying that even when the speaker is seeking re-election or the speaker is seeking election, you know when they are electing the speaker in the House, what happened on the 6th of January, the eventful one? The speakers are not allowed to campaign. They don't campaign. Their names are mentioned and people just cast a ballot. They don't give a speech. The one who is elected is the one who speaks, but they don't speak and say vote for me. And no, they don't do that. Speakers don't do that. You know, that's the point that they are making over there. Okay, these principles apply in almost all common law jurisdictions that follow the English system. In Canada, for instance, blah blah blah. So common law jurisdictions that follow the English system would include Ghana. And then there's an example in this research from Ghana where the minority leader Haruna Idrisu on the 4th of April 2020 told the media briefing that Professor Michael Okwe has become a walking illegality and a threat to parliamentary democracy in our country. I'll remind him that he is not the House, and it is not for nothing that the standing orders in Order 42 provide that the Speaker should consult the House. Not even the leaders were consulted on a particular matter that Haruna Idrisu was talking about. So this is our small theoretical research to enrich the debate about the role of the speaker.